So back when I had made my video talking about the circumstances for the anime adaptation of Yozakura Family, I briefly touched on an interview with Mirai Minato, who is the director of the series. In that interview, it was mentioned that there will be some surprises in there even for manga readers, that of course leading to the assumption that anime only content would be coming in some shape or manner. Now of course at the time, I couldn't imagine to what extent, but this week's episode of Yozakura Family gave us that dose of anime original content with both action and changes to the situation as a whole that in my opinion flowed a lot better overall in comparison to the manga. Now of course, before we dive into the episode, we gotta talk about the opening and the ending, which in my opinion gets a nice passing grade from me. The series could have easily leaned towards a more action heavy opening or a slice of life type-ish mood, but it honestly came down to creative choice. We can see that with both of them, they went for the more family dynamic route, which pretty much focuses on the main cast, and both songs are really nice. Of course, no spoilers whatsoever. I think both are safe to watch for all my anime onlys out there, so by all means add them to your playlist or run those numbers up on YouTube. We had a couple character teases in there that are associated with the early series content from the OP, and the ED is a really nice take on pixel art, which I really like personally. I think pixel art is always an idea you just can't mess up. Of course, make sure to let me know how you feel about both of these in the comments below, but overall I'd say I'm pretty pleased. Now onto the actual episode content. This week's episode did two things. Number one, it gave us the information we needed as to how this story is going to proceed. The Yozakura family's lifeline, so to speak, is Mutsumi due to her being able to pass down those special traits onto the next generation. That alone makes her life indispensable, and as such it falls on the family to protect her, which is now Tayo's biggest duty, and this is what I mean when I say that Yozakura Family is a balance of slice of life and action. There will be some antagonists like in today's episode that come and go, but there are also going to be future antagonists that genuinely have bones to pick with the family in a much more bigger scale and confrontational way. This week was just the tip of the iceberg. We got a lot of situations on the horizon and plot armor isn't going to save Tayo. It's lucky enough that he was able to get by this week, but it also shows that he is somebody that can and will rise to the occasion for Mutsumi's sake. Now I want to pause right here because this episode in terms of manga comparison had a much different flow to it. It's a flow that I'd argue is much better in the anime with all of the anime original additions within this episode. To dive into comparisons, at the beginning of the episode, the small little additions of torture by Kyoichiro was not in the manga, but I did hear that the anime will be elevating those moments where Kyoichiro picks on Tayo, and we begin to see that without it being too overbearing. Again, I know people are not going to be crazy fond of the sister obsession, but at least the extra stuff doesn't feel annoying. It feels right at home with the series. Funny enough, I also noticed that when Tayo was hanging upside down, he was making the same kind of finger signs that the characters in Urusei Yatsura do when they get hurt. I wonder if that's a nod towards the series, because if so, I definitely caught it, but I could be reaching. The second major addition to the episode was the entire car scene chase. In the manga, Kyoichiro pretty much explains the situation at hand alongside the lore of the family, and eventually the content plays out as intended. However, the anime original content closes some of the gaps with minor details, because in the manga, we didn't know who was driving the car, which set up the anime to do something unique with Goliath. Hilarious choice by the way, and it also showed just how much danger Mutsumi's life is constantly in with some assailants trying to blow it up. It was quite well animated, and once again, I must insist that you put some respect on Kyoichiro's name. If he's out here cutting cars with Steel Spider, then you should already be setting your expectations high when it comes to the real deal threats. I can imagine that these additions helped keep the episode under a nice pace, considering this week only adapted chapter 2, and I'm sure from here on out, we can expect a little something every week, whether it be big or small. Now, as for our actual threat this week, we have a bomber that's so chronically online, he tweets out his every move, hence the community nickname Twitter Bomber. Definitely the most sane threat for sure, but even so, with him being Tayo's first mission, the man is on edge the entire episode. Another small addition is just seeing him go through the classroom and check out every little thing, which closes a bit of a small gap within the manga, giving the girls a reason to have asked Mutsumi if Tayo was okay. There's a lot of point A to point B moments within Yozakura, and it seems like the anime is addressing those sort of in-between instances to help everything reach certain conclusions just nicely. So once again, good on the Yozakura staff for ensuring the content flows as well as possible. As far as a takeaway from this week's episode, it's gonna be the exchange between Tayo and Mutsumi. As I mentioned last week, Mirai has stated that they are going to be focusing on the new couple's relationship, and throughout the episode, you get nice moments with the two. First, with Tayo taking into account that Mutsumi has pretty much much walked a tightrope her entire life down to her daily routine. It emphasizes that he is beginning to realize how much of a burden she has had to carry, and yet despite that burden, she chose to look out for him as well. When putting things together like that, it naturally should want to make you try harder to be better and be that protector, and it's these little steps that Tao is taking now that will continue to push forward his growth. We saw that he was so focused that initially his social tendencies were a lot better this week, and that when you have something you cherish in the moment, anything that weighs you down will just dissipate. That right there is going to tie in very nicely over time with his character growth. Another point that I'm sure many people started smiling about was the fact that Mutsumi chose Tao. Their affection for each other is such a crystal clear two-way street, and we can see how when one is observing the other's tendencies, it's vice versa. She points out that despite all that he's lost and marrying into her family, he still puts her feelings first, which goes back to the climax of episode 1 with wanting to protect her very way of life. In terms of shonen romance, especially at the start, you really can't get any cleaner than this. It's healthy, it's supportive, it's cute with the thank you for marrying me moment. Like truly, what else could you want from a shonen couple? As much discourse other series have about ships and whatnot, this should be a great time, so if you need a refuge, then I promise you, investing in these two will be the best decision you can make yet. Now as for the final additions to the episode, we had that more of the family was actually present this episode, excluding Kyoichiro because he was naturally supposed to be at the end. The brothers being at the school and Shion watching from home with her drone is all anime only, but makes a lot more sense when you think about the importance of Mutsumi. It's not that they don't trust Tao, but for the sake of insurance, it would logically be smart to put everyone else on standby to ensure they both be safe. There's also the fact that the bomber actually got a full-on design in a few voice lines. Not that it was very important in the manga, but Kyoichiro took the bomb and sent it right back to the owner by chucking it into the building the bomber was hiding in. Yet in the anime, they brought him down, attached it to him, and then tossed them both out to blow up, which was a lot better in my opinion. In the manga, it comes off more one and done and convenient, but the anime adds a few more steps to show that he was properly dealt with by the whole family, and that is another thing to keep into account. Despite Kyoichiro's distaste for Tao, he will not let him die even if it kills him, because that is family. I know family is kind of a meme now, no thanks to Fast and the Furious, but this truly is a tight-knitted family, and there is nothing they wouldn't do for each other. As the story continues, I can't imagine anyone outright hating a family member, especially as we get those emotional moments, and I hope the anime brings the best of them to life. With all that being said, a very solid second episode closed out with a great ending. For those of you who caught it, the ending did capture volume 20 as well. However, if you are an anime only, I heavily advise not going to look at the volume to compare it, as it does have some major spoilers on it. We got a small after credit scene with Tao moving into the Yozakura household since his blew up, which also changes just a tiny bit at the beginning of chapter 3, but I'll hold off from that till next week. With that, it's pretty much gonna do it for me. As always, thank you very much for watching, and make sure to leave all your thoughts about the episode in the comments section down below. Stay safe out there, and I will see you all next Sunday for episode 3.